I've never really said this out loud before, but if you were to tell me 10 years ago, I mean, even 5 years ago, that I'd be in the position that I'm in today of having the blessing, being fortunate enough to be able to help children from all over the country, but even all over the world, where if you were to tell me that this week I'd have somebody flying in from South Africa to come to my clinic with the goal of helping their child, I would have said, not this guy, not me. You got the wrong, whatever fortune teller that you have, they picked the fortune for the wrong person, because that's not me. And I want to talk to you guys a little bit about what the journey's been like from a confused high school athlete that had the delusions that they would be some professional athlete to the college football player turned guy that joined a fraternity, all the way into owning and running a business where we have tons of employees and, like I said, have helped children from all over the world. Because it has been quite the journey. It's had its ups, it's had its downs, and I wanna share some of these with you guys. So it all starts back in high school. In high school, I was the high school football player that didn't get the best grades, that thought that the only purpose in his life was playing football. And for those of you guys that don't know, I am Jewish. I grew up Jewish, and I went to a Catholic high school. I went to this Catholic high school because my parents pushed me from an academia standpoint, from a sports standpoint, and it ended up being one of the greatest decisions I've ever made because of the relationships I built there, so on and so forth. But that sprung me forward to go and play football in college. And in college, I first went to Lafayette College. For those of you guys from the Northeast, I grew up in New Jersey. You'll probably know what that college is, but right when I got there, I knew it wasn't for me. I ended up transferring after the first semester back home to a school in New Jersey called the College of New Jersey, and I played football there. Ended up tearing my labrum, tore this left shoulder, and ended up joining a fraternity. And we were having fun doing typical college boy stuff, and I still had no idea what my ultimate passion was. I had family in the medical world. My dad was an attorney. I had 2 uncles that were chiropractors that I was fortunate enough to be able to work with pretty much my whole entire athletic career. So I've always had that in the back of my mind. I've had close family and family friends that were in the medical world, MDs, DOs, but again, didn't really know what I wanted to do. As I was going through college, and this kind of comes full circle, but I worked in an after-school program where we taught children how to golf and play tennis. And for those of you guys that know the story, you know what I'm talking about. But I got placed at a elementary school that was probably the most bougie elementary school you could possibly think of. It was in Princeton, New Jersey, where there were executives from Wall Street and people that had, a lot of money. I think this school was like $50,000 a year for a first grade school. It was a Montessori school. But it was interesting because at that school, I didn't even know I wanted to work with kids yet, but at this school, every child unfortunately had something going on. They were anxious, they all had one-on-one aides with them, they all had anxiety, they all had ADHD, they all needed to be taken away for their medications, and it is what it is. Every child's going through their own thing, but I was like, it's kind of weird. Like why is there so much stuff going on with all these kids? And that kind of just stuck in the back of my mind. But throughout college, we also, and this is kind of like the next step of that story, but I also did a service trip to Haiti for, I think it was like 20 days over a Christmas break, and went to Haiti. And, I liked working with kids at this after-school program, and we went to this mission trip, and it was initially about helping to give them more clean water and help rebuild certain things post all the earthquakes and everything. But in that whole entire experience, we worked with kids so much. And what I'll tell you right off the bat is these kids were smart. They were smart. They were intellectual. They, were happy. They would wake up, they would go outside, they would play with their friends. They were, their nonverbal communication was great. They were just nice, pleasant children to be around. And it was interesting for me to see because the only real big experience I had with kids prior was working at this after school program. And for me, I kind of had this initial revelation of, why is it that these children in Haiti, they don't really have many resources at all? Why are these kids so much happier? Why are they so much more friendly? Why do none of them have anxiety? Where I was working at this other school where it was the most elite resources, anything that they needed, these kids had access to. And why were all of those kids, for lack of a better word, why do they all have issues? Like, what was going on? Like, what's the disconnect there? And that, I thought about that a lot. I kind of let it go. I've had some conversations about it, but I still didn't know what my path was. So I ended up talking to my uncles and figuring out that me going to chiropractic school was the best move for me. It gave me the ability to be able to promote more of the health-minded stuff, to be able to go out there and help the community how I wanted to help them, and be able to own my own business, run my own practice. It just gave me a little bit more autonomy to be able to help to teach people how to be healthy, compared to just going down the medical route and just giving people, medications, which, I'm not anti-medication by any means, but that's not how I wanted to practice. So I ended up taking all my prereqs. I ended up graduating undergrad early and went right down to chiropractic school. And I went to chiropractic school in Daytona Beach, Florida, and I spent the next 3.5 years down there on the beach, happy as could be. But right when I started chiropractic school, I feel like I found my passion. I went from getting good, decent grades in undergrad, but throughout all chiropractic school, I ended up having pretty much all straight A's. Right from the start, I became a better studier, and around 3 to 6 months into it, I heard a speech from someone that you guys probably know. His name's Robert Melillo, Dr. Robert Melillo, and he is kind of the pioneer in looking at neurodevelopment and some of the underlying brain-based issues behind it. So I heard a lecture from him, and as he was speaking, I'm like, oh my God, everything that you're saying, this is what I was thinking about years ago when I went down to Haiti and saw these children happy as can be. And what he was essentially talking about is what a brain needs to develop to be the best it could possibly be. And that comes from activation, from stimulation, from our environment, from the foods that we're eating, all the above. And that kind of led me down this little rabbit hole right from the start of school of learning about the brain, learning about the nervous system and what ultimately influenced it, but also how to make it stronger as well. So I started something called my Diplomate. It's a thing in chiropractic school where you could do after chiropractic school, and there's a couple different routes from the functional medicine side of it to the neurology side of it to some things from like a sport medicine side of it. But I started my post-grad neurology Diplomate pretty early on in school. So I would go through the whole chiropractic curriculum. I still had pride in being a chiropractor. I didn't want to push away from it, but I found my passion within neurology. And I would go home from school and I would sit in my room. I had a bed, I had a desk. I would sit at my desk on my computer and I would just watch these neurology videos, all my trainings for hours. And I mean hours. Like there'd be times I wouldn't go out on a weekend night just because I would just be watching these videos like a movie. I was so interested by them. And that really fueled this passion that I've grown with. And as I started out, it was just more brain-based stuff, but then it shifted into learning more specifics about what affects a developing brain, what affects a child's developing brain. And as we went through, I found some good mentors along the way, and I met a doctor named Dr. Russell Teams, who was practicing out in Arizona. And this was like towards the end of my school, but he invited me out here to just come shadow, and came and shadowed. He was working at a clinic with Dr. Trevor Berry. And long story short, they ended up asking me to do my internship here, which is the last bit of my chiropractic school. And I ended up being hired on after. And it ended up being a very interesting time because I started my internship in January 2020 and then graduated in April 2020, March 2020. I don't even know because I didn't even have my graduation, but it was a very interesting time to get started because the lockdown was happening. We were reduced hours. And the first year and a half or so, I was like a sponge. I was learning from two of these amazing, amazing people. And when I first started, I didn't even know I wanted to stay in Arizona, but I was learning so much and getting so much education on lasers, on functional neurology, on nutrition, on supplementation. And that first year and a half, I didn't even see any of my own patients. I worked as a tech for them, listened, took notes, learned all the back end stuff. I slowly started working with some more adult patients, getting my hands dirty, and started seeing some pretty cool results. And then sure enough, I started working with one pediatric patient. That turned into 2, that turned into 5, that turned into 10, where it was, I saw just a giant need. And I knew I wanted to work with kids, but working there even showed how big of this need was. So I started running with that. And yeah, it kind of just spread like wildfire, gosh, I can't even speak. Wildfire from there. And ended up getting pretty busy. And I started working with so many kids where it started becoming a little bit of a disruption within the clinic because they were primarily working with adults, concussion, Alzheimer's, and I had children that were screaming, that were crying, and it didn't mesh all that well. So I was like, I got to figure out what I'm going to do here. I guess taking one step back. Before I started taking on my own patients, I was getting a little frustrated because I was like, what am I doing? You know, like I don't have a patient load. I'm just being a tech. So it was over Thanksgiving, after my first year there, I came home, I started looking at places. I'm like, I'm going to move home. I'm just going to open a clinic at home. I'm going to do this on my own. I can do this. I'm going to find a small place right by where I grew up. And I came home. I toured a bunch of places. I had the lease in front of me. I had the pen to paper. I'm like, okay, I'm going to sign this. Go to sign it. I'm like, you know what? Let me wait just a little bit. Let me not be too impulsive. Let me go back to Arizona. Let me give it another month or two. And sure enough, that first month I came back, that's when everyone started coming in. That's when I started having some of my patients I'm still working with to this day. That's when they started coming in, and that's when the wildfire ultimately ended up starting. So funny how life works out. There's a chance that I wasn't even in Arizona if I was just a little bit more impulsive and signed that paper, or I didn't have that one patient that kind of jump-started everything else. So back to the whole idea of me figuring out what my next steps were. So I was working there. I'm like, I have to open my own clinic. Terrified to open my own clinic. I find a 1,000 square foot office kind of right in the center of Arizona, right in the center of Phoenix here. And I go out on a limb. I'm like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to sign this lease. I'm going to give it my best shot. It wasn't too expensive of a lease because it was such a small place, but I jumped on in and did it. And I was lucky enough to be able to bring some of my patients with me that I established at the other clinic. So I wasn't starting with like 0 patients. I had like 3 or 4 patients. nothing too crazy. But I moved there. I started with the equipment that I needed. I bought a laser. I bought 2 lasers. I bought a couple equipment, but I tried staying as lean as possible. I had 1 staff with me, and we started working with kids. Yes, it was very intimate. There was no break room. There was a microwave and a storage closet that we used. Nothing crazy by any means. But we started working with patients. Again, things started getting bigger. They started coming in, and we were starting to really get some of these kids better. We had 1 staff member that went on to 2 staff members. That second staff member was Marissa, that you guys have probably met if you've been to our clinic. She's amazing. But it got to a point where we started working with a lot of kids there. Our schedule was all over the place. It was super unorganized, but we started working with more and more and more people, which was awesome. But the issue was, since it was such a small place, I was next to 2 different people. I was next to an architect and a psychologist. And my room was right next to the psychologist's room. And kids would scream, kids would cry, and they started complaining to the management that I was torturing kids. And it's funny to say now, but yeah, they were like, this guy's torturing kids in there. And obviously I wasn't, but they were like, you have to keep it down, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to have you guys come into the clinic, and I'm going to ask you to ask some of the kids that I work with politely, can you please keep it down? And obviously they weren't going to do that. And I'm like, okay, this isn't going to work. This space isn't working. We're already outgrowing it. There's only 3 rooms. I need something bigger. So I talked to the management and they moved me within the same complex to a different unit that had no neighbors. That went from 1,000 square feet to around 1,600 square feet. It was perfect because I had more space to be able to work with more people. So we went to this space. We were at the old one for around a year or so. They just transferred my lease over. And in the second space, things started growing really quick. So within around a year and a half, we had fully outgrown that space. And I thought that space was going to last us 5 years. Lasted us, year and a half, and we were already looking for another place. So then we moved to 3,000 square feet. And in that 3,000 square feet, we started hiring more people. We started being able to see a lot more people, which was awesome. And then we worked there for around a year. And I'm like, oh God, I think we're running out of space again. So lucky enough, next door, there was another 1,000 square feet that opened up, 1,500 square feet that opened up. So we got that. So now all in, and we're still here, around like 44,000, 4,500 square feet. And what has been a very big challenge for me throughout this whole thing is, yes, we've built an amazing team and we've hired an amazing staff, and we're so lucky to have everyone that we have, but there's so much stuff that I still needed to learn as someone that had employees and owning a business, because up until now it's been more so, let's figure it out. I don't really fully know what I'm doing from a business standpoint, but I'm going to figure it out. And over the years, there's just been little by little information I'm able to take in, and it's still something that, I'm learning, and I'm far from perfect. In our clinic, we go through changes all the time. I can't tell you how much failed projects that we've had online with different coaches and different things that I thought would be perfect that ended up just not working out in the slightest. And what I've ultimately learned along this journey was, if your main goal is following your passion, that's what's going to make you successful, outside of just saying, this year I want to make X amount of money. That's just not how this works. It's not how it works, especially in the world of healthcare, especially when you're working with children. So for everyone watching this that's trying to figure out what their purpose or what their path in life is, I would say is to explore and figure out what your passion is. My passion has always been around health and helping people and being able to give my heart to others and put that energy out there. And I've been so lucky enough to be able to find this gift with children, where I wake up in the morning, I wake up at 5 a.m. every morning, and I'm excited to wake up because I get to continue fueling what my passion is. And the exciting part is, this is just the start of it. There's so much cool things to come, so much cool things that we're putting together. I graduated in March 2020, so it's only been 6 years now. And I think that the growth that I had, like I said, it's fueled from figuring out my why. It's been a lot of self-reflection. It's been a lot of projects that I started and I'm like, this isn't it. But now I can say with the utmost confidence that I'm in the position that I need to be in to be able to fulfill my why in this lifetime. And I'm blessed where my next chapter is coming of, I just got married in October. I have a baby boy on the way here in August, where this is kind of my next evolution of life, where I'm able to take everything that I put together here at the clinic, all that stuff, and I'm able to say, how can I transfer this over to my life? How could I give my family the best life that they can? How could I raise my son and my future kids with all of the education that I've had with neurodevelopment, and how can I be an asset for this lifetime? And it really is a blessing. So I appreciate all you guys following along, those of you who have been to our clinic. We have a lot of fun in our clinic, and you can see really what passionate of a team that we have. Lucky enough to be able to build around what we do. But if you're new here, welcome to our journey. The last 6 years have been absolutely bonkers, and I try to document a lot of it here, but I can't even imagine what the next 5 or 6 years are going to be like. I know there's going to be highs. I know there's definitely going to be lows. There's going to be growing pains. There's going to be me figuring stuff out. And I'm more than happy to share that with all you guys. So appreciate you following along. I'm here to help you guys. We do a lot of stuff in person, a lot of stuff online, but more importantly, I'm going to be able to, I put a lot of information out to help you guys, because at the end of the day, my main goal is to make children healthier, make children stronger, make children go through neurodevelopment in the best way possible, whatever that might be.